Education and Finance Policy Committee to order. Today is Tuesday, March 8th. It's 1:05 p.m. Senator Bakk.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm very humbled to be here on behalf of Senator Thomasoni to present this bill. You know, ALS as a disease was first diagnosed back in 1869. And over the years, so few people were afflicted by it that it just never attracted any research dollars because it was such a small number of people impacted. And finally, it got some attention in 1939 when Lou Gehrig was diagnosed with it, and it got a name that most of the public refers to the disease today as Lou Gehrig's disease. But still, because so few people have been afflicted, and at any given time, there's about 450 people in Minnesota that have this disease. About 2 people are diagnosed every week, about 2 people die. So that number is pretty constant. There's about 450 people in Minnesota on any given day living with this disease. And it's time to spend some money on research to figure out, it may be
Past time.
a very curable disease, but we just don't know because we haven't done the research to study it. And maybe not all forms of it are, but some of them, once we do some research, we might find that some of the people that are afflicted with this, that there may be a drug we can develop to cure this disease or prevent this disease. We know that some of it is genetic. So maybe there is some kind of preventative thing can be done, but we just don't know. So I'm very proud to be here today to request on behalf of Senator Thomasoni $20 million to go to research. And if you look at the amendment, it's not exclusive to the university. It's not exclusive to the Mayo Clinic. There is research going on in a number of places around the state. Matter of fact, Essentia up in Duluth and at the university here and at the Mayo, they're all participating in a trial program right now with a cohort of people in all 3 communities and sharing information back and forth with a different, quicker way to find out what the clinical results are by using multiple drugs at a time. So I think there's a lot that I didn't want it exclusively to any one institution because I want to make sure that we share all the best ideas. And I know Senator Thomasoni feels exactly the same way. We don't care where the cure or where we make improvements come from, if they come out of Duluth or out of the Mayo or out of the university, that people that have got the kind of research in the queue, we want to be able to advance that. So it's not specific to any one facility. So the Office of Higher Education would take proposals and then consult with the health department about which projects should get funded. You'll notice that this appropriation does not expire at the end of the biennium because I think it runs through the next biennium actually. And then there's a report required back to see kind of what have to the legislature annually so the legislature can review who's been receiving the grants, what kind of research they're doing, those kind of things. And it may well be that we find out we're moving the ball forward and the next legislature is going to want to put additional money into this. But it'll be very hard for the next legislature to make a decision about that unless we know kind of what has all been going on out on the ground. So that's the purpose of the reporting mechanism in here. Mr. Chairman, that's about all I have to add. We've got some testifiers that can speak personally to the bill and to the need for the research.
Thank you, Senator Bakk. Before we go to testifiers, I'd like to go to Senator Thomasoni would like to speak. Senator Thomasoni, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for hearing this bill and thank you to Senator Bakk for carrying the bill. Thank you also to Senator Housley for carrying a similar bill. Members, Lou Gehrig died of ALS in 1939. Little to no progress in finding a cure has been made since. This bill is a concerted effort to find a cure for ALS. ALS is a neurological disease that saps the strength from muscles and ultimately leaves chaos in its wake. In September, I was still driving and able to dress and feed myself. Today, I can't do any of them. The disease progresses differently in different people. Hopefully, This bill will go a long way to finding a permanent stop to any progression whatsoever. It may not happen in my lifetime, but the future needs to be full of hope that the next generations will be ALS free. Thanks to the co-authors and all the support everyone has given to me and my family all along the way. Thank you, committee members, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tomassoni. Even with technology, it's so great to hear your comments today. With that, I'm going to change it over or switch over to our first testifier, Chris Engler. Mr. Engler, if you could state your name and who you're with and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I have ALS. Forgive me. I first talked to Senator Tomassoni and he told me, you know, I was watching the Wild the other day. They won in overtime and I'm crying. It's part of this darn disease. So please forgive me. I'm a retired basketball player, teacher, and lawyer, and I was diagnosed this past May. Just couldn't bring this finger over to this hand. I can now with the help of this hand, but I still can't. I thought it was arthritis or something. And so I went in, my doctor did all kinds of tests on me and ultimately sent me to a neurologist, and they came back with the dreaded diagnosis. So here I sit, very pleased with Senator Tomassoni and Senator Bakk's proposed legislation. Nobody should have to go through this. I just met with somebody whose brother-in-law has the disease, much more advanced than mine. And he was basically told they can't do much for him. So he has to go home and with his family and just basically digress his condition. The motor neurons die, and pretty soon he'll be completely, he won't be able to breathe, he won't be able to eat, he won't be able to speak. You heard Senator Tomassoni using new technology. It was shared with me that it's the type where you can look at on the keyboard, you can look at letters and focus on them and you can speak that way. So progress is being made that way. But I'd just like to read just a little bit here. That Senator Tomassoni and Senator Bakk have honored my wife Karen and I by asking us to be involved in moving this bill forward. Thank you so much. The importance of this legislation cannot be underestimated, and in many ways is designed to serve the very purpose of government, to help those who can least help themselves. As Senator Bakk and Tomassoni mentioned, at any given time, 450 Minnesotans have this disease. Some die, some are recently diagnosed. We're all in different places. It's a very individualized disease. With Senator Tomassoni, it's much more aggressive. With the person I mentioned earlier, much more aggressive. With mine, it's moving up my arm, my left arm, and it's going to cross over. But when it's the bulbar type of ALS, it's much more aggressive. And that's what Senator Tomassoni is dealing with now. ALS is a very rare disease, and so government-funded research, clinic expansion, and caretaker assistance will help lead to prolonging the quality of life for ALS sufferers, leading eventually to a cure. The Minnesota legislature will lead the nation by passing this legislation and granting places such as the University of Minnesota and others to research cures for this disease. Again, Minnesota will continue to be a leader of medical innovation, which will benefit countless many. By providing funds for ALS clinics throughout the state, future ALS patients will be able to be diagnosed sooner and receive treatment to potentially prolong their quality of life. This legislation also recognizes the impact on the caretakers of those with ALS, providing funding for them too. We who have this disease have a very short window of time before it progresses and we slowly lose control of our bodies as our motor neurons fail and die. There's no getting back what we have lost to the disease at this time. Thus, time is of the essence, as every day more Minnesotans are diagnosed with ALS and help for them is needed. Thank you, Senator Bakk, Senator Tomassoni, all legislators, ALS advocates, this committee, and Minnesotans for backing this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Engler. Next, we have Mr. Kent Hrbek. Mr. Hrbek, if you could go ahead and state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, everybody. Kent Hrbek. I don't want to get too close to the camera. Not too used to doing this. Former Minnesota Twin. Grew up in Minnesota. Been a big time backer with ALS. My father passed away back in 1982 of the disease, and I took it upon myself at that time to, as far as a professional athlete, a lot of guys take on different roles and try to help out in different way, different charity stuff. So I started out with the ALS Association because I knew nothing about it, and my father had been diagnosed with the disease. So started out having a golf tournament, trying to raise money for ALS. And at the time when my father was diagnosed back in 1981, he passed away in 1982. I think there was 6 people at the University of Minnesota in his support group, and that's all they had. There was no doctors giving him anything or nothing at all. I had heard about the disease because of playing baseball and knowing Lou Gehrig and what a great player he was and what it did to him, and took him off the baseball field because he could no longer play. And I watched my father go through it. Then in 1981, when I was called up to play in the big leagues and played first base at Yankee Stadium, was my first game where Lou Gehrig played. So kind of an ironic thing that I took this upon myself to hopefully find some sort of way to fight this disease, and fundraising was the way I went about doing it, with tons of help from my teammates from the Minnesota Twins and everybody around the league and all this and that. But I know we've had some different meetings at different things the other night with Senator Tomassoni at the banquet they had the other night, and Chris was there as well. And we've started up some pretty good fundraising events in Minnesota, working a lot. I think my golf tournament, we had 18 years. We did my golf tournament. I'm doing the fishing tournament up in Duluth for 27 years now. Our Blizzard snowmobile ride that we do up in Duluth has been going on for 24 years now. And we've maybe raised, in the last 38 years that I've been involved trying to raise money for this horrible disease, maybe $25 million or $20 million in the time that we've done all the different fundraising and walks and this and that with the ALS Association. We started up a chapter in 1996, kind of spearheaded that chapter back in 96 to take care of not only people in Minnesota, but North and South Dakota as well. And we have really tried to do a big part in helping people fight the disease, but really their families try to take care of different things that they needed to help the person that had the disease, which is, as I'm sure everybody will tell you, that's the hardest part about it. I know my father couldn't speak towards his death back in '82, and we started up a Hrbek Sing program with computers to help you talk, and it was probably the same machine that you heard Senator Tomassoni talk on the computer was something that we started here in Minnesota. So, but to get this bill passed, the amount of money that you start talking about, $20 million, I jumped on the wagon right away, let me tell you, to hear that kind of money coming out. And for all the work that we've done, all the people, hard work that everybody has done in Minnesota. And believe me, when you talk about ALS in Minnesota, people know what you're talking about because of the way that this state has grabbed onto it and tried helping and fighting and to throw this bill out there and say, hey, let's do this. That's some serious spearheading going on there. And very happy and very proud to put my name on this bill and help you guys do whatever you can or need whatever you need to get this through. So thank you guys very much for listening and I hope I didn't bore you to the death. And again, Senator Tomassoni, love you to death, man. Hang in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hrbek. Next, David Walk. And Mr. Walk, if you could also state your name for the record and who you're with and presume with your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. For the record, my name is David Bakk. I'm a professor of the Department of Neurology at the University of Minnesota. I'm the medical director of the University of Minnesota ALS Certified Treatment Center of Excellence. And my clinical practice is in caring for people living with ALS and other motor neuron disorders, as well as Charcot-Marie-Tooth and other neuropathies. I'm grateful to you and to Senator Bakk and Senator Tomassoni for the opportunity to testify in support of this legislation. As you heard, and as you know, ALS is a devastating illness. The need for better treatments is immediate. This legislation can be transformational. We believe that cures must come from knowledge of the cellular biology of the disease. In recent years, several cellular problems have been identified that may be treatable root causes of ALS. The research funding in this bill can help in many ways, and here's how we can help at the university. This can galvanize the extensive resources of a major public research university to accelerate the progress that we hope to see and need to see. The University of Minnesota, as you know, is a national research leader in muscular dystrophy, ataxia, Parkinson's disease, and also Alzheimer's disease. And with the help of the Stem Cell Institute, the Bakk Medical Devices Center, the Center for Magnetic Resonance Research, the Muscular Dystrophy Center, the Genomics Center, we feel as though we can play a role in helping to accelerate progress in treating ALS. I want to focus or emphasize this basic science focus because scientists are beginning to get this disease into focus. And as I see it, the sharper our focus at understanding it, the better our aim at treating it. Scientific discoveries will lead to more clinical trials, and that's where our aim needs to be. These trials are designed to determine what works best to stop ALS. We look forward to working with health systems throughout the state to facilitate access to clinical trials to as many interested Minnesotans as possible, regardless of their background, personal circumstances, or geographic location. Finally, it remains important to expand research in and access to electronic aids and other interventions that remove barriers in daily life for people living with ALS and other physical challenges. Working alongside established programs of clinical research and care, and with the courageous partnership of people living with ALS and their families, the funding in this bill can help to unlock the biology of this disease and to design treatments that will improve and extend the lives of people living with ALS in Minnesota and throughout the world. I want to extend my gratitude and honor Senator Tomassoni for his service to the people of the Iron Range and to all Minnesotans. I again want to thank Senator Bakk. Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walk. Any questions while he's at the stand? Otherwise, we'll proceed. And if you can stick around, we may have questions after that. With that, we'll go to Mayor Smigluski.
Thank you.
If you could introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chair, I am David Smigluski. I'm the mayor of Granite Falls, a position I've held for about 26 years. And I've served on our city council for 42 years. I was good friends with former state senator Gary Kubley, who is also from Granite Falls and who succumbed to ALS while in office 10 years ago this month. I was diagnosed with ALS approximately 2 years ago. I'll be 69 years old in just 2 days. I am very fortunate to have a slow progressing form of ALS, which, as you can hear, affects my speech. So please be patient with me and feel free to ask me to repeat myself if you don't understand. It's no problem. I have a very close friend who was diagnosed with ALS approximately a year before I was, and he has progressed very far and is now totally disabled and being cared for by his wife at their home with the help of some friends, including myself and my wife. Our small town of Granite Falls, which has a population of about 3,000, currently has 5 people with ALS, which is significantly higher than any other statistical average. There is a huge need for more research about the causes of ALS and a huge need to find a cure for this most difficult of diseases. Finding a drug therapy that would effectively slow the progression of ALS would be a wonderful breakthrough. Finding a drug therapy that would reverse the effects of ALS in patients would be even better. As the previous eloquent speakers have all said, time is of the essence. We must fund research into this disease that is affecting ALS patients, their families, their friends, and their communities. I just want to urge the committee and all of the legislature to support this all important bill and give a boost to research into the causes of ALS and to help find a cure. I also want to thank specifically Senator Thomasoni for his courage and insight on this bill and his amazing fortitude, and also to his good friend Thomas Bakk. Senator Bakk has got very broad shoulders and is very capable of speaking up for Senator Thomasoni. My hats off to both of you for your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Smiglowski. Appreciate it. Great testimony. it's a little ironic, I guess, to be able to be in Senator Thomasoni's chair today, not only to chair his committee. I'll go back a little bit. I joined the legislature in 2017 and became great friends with Senator Thomasoni. We shared a few stories when we first met to earn our trust with each other. And he has become a great friend who I love dearly, just as Mr. Hrbek said. Every family and every person serving with ALS or their families are all very important. But as we all saw a week ago at a Ranger party, to see the support that came out for Senator Thomasoni that night truly shows what he's done to the legislature. I know he's the most well-respected, well-liked, and loved legislator that I've seen in my 6 years here. So it's an honor to sit in this chair spot. We'll shortly turn it over to vice chair here shortly. But to be here for the testimony on this bill is so, so important. Senator Thomasoni and Senator Bakk have done so many things for the range over the years. If we can only hope that this bill will do that much support for ALS, we will be very fortunate. So with that, I'm going to turn the gavel back. Okay, never mind, I will continue on. With that, I'm going to open it to comments from members. We have one more testifier. We have one more testifier, I'm sorry. Please come up, introduce yourself, and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, Mary Ann Kuhn from the ALS chapter is here locally. I'm Phil Griffin, representing them as the lobbyists.
No, we can take off, I think, unless some.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mary Ann Kuhn. I'm the Vice President of Care Services at the ALS Association here in Minnesota. And obviously I'm here asking for your support of Senate File 3372. I know you've heard some of the statistics already, but just to share a couple more. We know ALS is a progressive disease. We know that it affects nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord. We know that it ultimately will rob individuals of their ability to walk, talk, and eventually breathe. You heard from Senator Bakk, 2 people are diagnosed every week and 2 people pass away every week from this disease. These are hard numbers to hear. We know 90% of those diagnosed have no known reasons. This is why we need this bill. We also know veterans are twice as likely to be diagnosed with ALS. Again, for reasons that are unknown, because we don't have the research that's been put into it to figure it out. We know from our association that we served over 600 people living with ALS last year, providing them equipment. You heard Kent talk about the Hrbek program that he helped provide our chapter, so we can provide that equipment to individuals so they can continue to communicate when their voice is no longer strong enough to do so. We know there's no known cure. We know that there's no way to reverse the damage that is caused by ALS yet, but we're optimistic. We believe with this research, we can get closer to finding those answers. We also know it's been 150 years since ALS was first discovered. You think about other drugs or other, diseases that have been around that long. It shouldn't be that we only have 2 treatments available to slow it. So we also know, I think you guys may have heard about the ice bucket challenge that happened a couple of years ago. We've seen real benefits when people take the effort to put research into this disease. We have 5 new genes that have been discovered. We have 3 new antisense drugs that have been developed. We have seen the momentum that happens when people commit to putting the research dollars in. We also know it is not inexpensive to bring a drug to market. Estimates are between $1 and $3 billion from the time you start research until you actually see it coming to your prescription, to your pharmacy. But we know the funding in this bill would be transformational in terms of the research that can be conducted. We know that people living with ALS don't have the luxury of waiting. So we thank you all for your support. We know how important this is, and from everybody that we serve in the state of Minnesota, on behalf of all those living with ALS, their caregivers, their family members, we can't thank you enough for your support, and we are here if you have any questions about this disease or what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keen. With that, we'll go out to members, or Senator Bakk, would you like any other comments before we go to members?
I can close, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Senator Bakk. Members. Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, it's been almost 30 years since we lost my brother-in-law, my wife's brother from ALS. And the problem we experienced during that time was the diagnosis of it. For months, it seems like weeks, we couldn't find out what the problem was. And eventually he landed in a nursing home, but he had served in the submarine service. And my wife researched that. Was it something during his naval experience with the submarines that he came in contact with? Then he was an engineer with Sperry Unisys, and he worked on naval defense systems. So he was involved in going on a lot of ships and installing these weapon systems and so on. Was it something from his work? He was a hunter, deer hunter. Was it something, maybe a wasting disease that he came in contact with? So we spent weeks, and it seemed like months, trying to decide with doctors, working with them about what exactly was the ailment that he was having. And eventually it was ALS, and that's what he passed away from. So from our experience, I just really hope that, and it sounds like that a lot of advances have been made about diagnosing and early diagnosis and working. So I really support this bill, and it is something that is a great tribute to Senator Tomassoni, who is a friend to so many of us. So thank you.
The members, Senator Goggin.
Yeah, sorry, I have a cousin, 7 years. It's debilitating to see what they go through, what their family goes through, what their friends go through, what their caregivers go through. And I just want to say, young Patrick, we're here for you. So I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work you've done. I want to thank Senator Tomassoni. He's a great friend. Senator Bakk, thank you. And I just want to say that I'm 100% on board with this bill. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Goggin. Senator Bakk, I have one question, and I mentioned to you earlier, and I agree with you've had discussions with Senator Tomassoni on this University of Minnesota expanding that. And one of my questions is if we're going to expand that, I just want to make sure it's somewhat of a coordinated effort, so that that each individual institution is not working in silos. So we're really working together. So have you looked into that any further of how we can coordinate that, so that, again, $20 million is a lot of money, but if you silo that out, you can sometimes duplicate efforts. So have you checked in anything on that, on how we can coordinate this to make sure that it's coordinated and we're not duplicating efforts? Senator Bakk.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I talked with Senator Rosen about this because I'm still not 100% sure we have this exactly right? And I know Senator Tomassoni wants this exactly right so that we get the best outcomes we possibly can. And a coordinated approach is something both him and I certainly support. So what I had a conversation with Senator Rosen about as we move this forward today, if there are words we need to add to make sure that we get the most synergy between people doing the research, we all want to have that. So if anybody has ideas on how to improve this bill, Senator Rosen has agreed, even though bills aren't normally amended in finance, that she would be willing to take amendments in finance to get this exactly in the position where we get the most synergy of all this research between different grant recipients. So I'm looking forward to people's ideas. If we can find a way to improve this, that's something we certainly want to do between now and Thursday.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Senator Bakk, closing comments.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Minnesota is an innovative state, very innovative state. We've got a very creative people here, and some of you know Minnesotans have invented a lot of firsts. Minnesotans invented water skis and rollerblades and Post-it notes and sandpaper. And we made a significant contribution to the health of the world with Minnesota's medical device industry, with things like pacemakers and defibrillators. Wouldn't it be amazing if Minnesota became the place we fund a cure for this disease? Wouldn't we all be proud? And it really starts here, right, with Senator Thomasoni's courage. Because I will never forget the day, and David had been, last session, David had been doctoring on Fridays because he was having trouble with his left hand. And I remember him telling me I have to lift my hand up to shave and I can't fold my collar down. And we kind of joked a little bit, geez, this getting old is tough. And so every Friday when he'd go home, he'd go to the doctor, and it was weeks and weeks. And Monday morning, I'd ask him, you know, did you find anything out? And I will never forget the day when I walked across the suite into his office and I said, but what did you find out Friday? It was last June. And he said, Tom, I've got ALS. And he said something I'll never forget. He said, I'm not afraid of dying. He said, I'm afraid of what I have to go through to get there. So this bill, I hope, leads to the research that somewhere down the road, the next person that gets diagnosed isn't told there's nothing we can do, but is told that there's some hope. And I can't remember ever testifying on a bill more about hope than this. And my heart goes out to Senator Thomasoni for what he's going through. And I think looking around the committee table, I think I'm the only one that served with Senator Kubley when he went through this as a member of the state Senate. And he represented, I fondly refer to the mayor of Granite Falls as Smig, because his last name ends in ski and there's too many letters between S and ski for me to pronounce it. So those of us that have known Smig when he was the editor of the newspaper and longtime mayor of Granite Falls knew that him and Gary Kubley, who represented Granite Falls, were close friends. And his testimony does remind me, is there something environmental about this? That the per capita number in a town like Granite Falls is what it is, right? Or is there something related? We have too many professional athletes that are coming down with this. Is there something in their profession that there are disproportionate numbers of people afflicted? All answers we don't have, or all questions we don't have answers to right now, but hopefully this kind of research can lead us down a path to answer some of those unanswered questions. So, Mr. Chairman and committee, I deeply appreciate, and Senator Thomasoni appreciates us really moving this to finance so that, and hopefully leadership's willing to take it up and we can have a standalone bill signing ceremony so that other people that are afflicted will know that maybe it won't help them because they've already been diagnosed, but there's some hope for future people diagnosed that they won't suffer the same kind of hopelessness in dealing with the disease. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to everybody who's testified, and to Chris and others who are been afflicted by this. Thank you for your courage in helping us move this forward. I have learned here in my time, the things that feel best that we do are when you do something for somebody you don't know. And that's what this is. And that's what Senator Thomasoni is proposing, to help people that he doesn't know. And I think as you move, the longer you're in the Senate, you move to retirement, the more that starts to mean to you. Have I done anything that is going to make life better for somebody, and somebody I don't know? I think that's, and we get an opportunity to do that in big and small ways. And this might seem like a small way today, but we might look back on this 10 years from now and say that this was a remarkable move, that the state Senate initiative that we move forward today. We just don't know, and we won't know until we get into it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Bakk. And I know you've been a good friend of Senator Thomasoni's much longer than I have. I'm sure it's 30+ years. But if it's 30 years or 6 years, or if you met him last month, Senator Thomasoni has that effect on people. He is a true, genuine individual. So thanks, Senator Thomasoni, Senator Bakk. I know this has been an emotional testimony for all of us because it's someone we love. There's no doubt. I think I speak on behalf of everyone here in this whole facility that we love Senator Thomasoni. So this will be a great bill to proceed. Senator Thomasoni, would you like any comments before we move your bill? I just want to clarify, I thought we had him unmute, so I thought he wanted to say something. So I want to make
Thank
sure
you.
there he is. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Thomasoni. With that, Senator Hrbek, would you like to move the bill? Senator Hrbek moves Senate File 3372 as amended be passed and forwarded to Finance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Thank you, Senator Bakk, and all testifiers. With there being no other items on the agenda, we are hereby adjourned.